The Sony A7R Mark II and the Canon 5DSR are two of the most popular full-frame high megapixel cameras on the market right now. But what do they mean for the professional photographer? And of course, how do they stack up against the Leaf Credo50? It's got a 50 megapixel CMOS sensor, and it's almost the same as the Phase 1 IQ250. In fact, Phase 1 owns Leaf. We're going to be looking at image quality, high ISO performance, dynamic range, and handling. So let's take a look at sharpness. On the left, we have the Canon 5DSR. In the middle, we have the Credo50. And on the right would be the Sony A7R Mark II. All these three were shot at ISO 100 and an aperture of f10 with the standard lenses. And grey balance was done with an X-Rite color checker. I would say that the Canon has a slight magenta and pinkish hue to it. And let's just zoom in and take a look at the details of the three corresponding images. Straight off the bat, I would say that the Credo50 is coming in at first place, doing a marvelous job with its incredible rendition of details and sharpness. Second place would be the Sony A7R Mark II, which is also doing a very good job. And third place would be the Canon 5DSR. All three cameras are doing a very good job in terms of sharpness, but the Credo50 is clearly delivering the extra margin. Okay, so let's make some noise now. Now with these three cameras, I shot them at an ISO of 1006. Generally speaking, I find that modern cameras perform superbly well at ISOs of around 400 and 800. So it's quite pointless to try and test them at that relevant ISO. So let's just jump in straight at 1006. Alright, let's take a look at this area here. And of course the 5DSR is on the left, Credo in the middle, and the A7R on the right. Now, it's a bit difficult to kind of like compare noise at this kind of dark level, so I generally like to bring it up by increasing the exposure by one stop to see how they really fare. Now, once I've boosted it up by a stop for the three images, I find that the noise level for the Credo and the A7R to be fairly okay. Alright, of course the details of the Credo is still very outstanding. But on the other hand, the A7R Mark II, well, the noise performance is just amazing. So let's see how they perform right now at ISO 3200. And again, let's zoom in. Now at this point, even before I even increase the exposure, I find the noise level of the 5DSR a little bit disturbing. But nonetheless, let's just bring them all up by a stop. And what I would say is I find the 5DSR noise at ISO 3200 rather disturbing. The Credo, well, it's fairly disturbing as well. It's barely usable, depending on your perception of how you accept noise. But again, at ISO 3200 for the A7R Mark II is just simply amazing. There is really very little noise. Okay, finally, let's take a look at ISO 6400 for the three cameras, and let's zoom in. Now, I would say that I would really want to avoid using 6400 ISO on the 5DSR. Likewise, I find it really patchy and, well, kind of disturbing the noise on the Credo, and the A7R Mark II still looks fairly clean. So let's bring it all up by a stop each, and whoa, okay, that looks awful if you ask me for the 5DSR. The Credo is still pulling in a lot of sharpness and details, but I still find it rather patchy and noisy. On the other hand, for the A7R Mark II, it's getting a little bit noisy, but still fairly usable. So there we go. The ISO, or rather the high ISO champion is evidently so the A7R Mark II. Let's talk about handling. Now, the Leaf Credo50 probably handles the worst out of the three. Its AF system is rather mediocre, it's very heavy, but its large size also shows that you mean business when you bring it on set. The 5DSR, on the other hand, handles very well. It's designed and built just like the 5D Mark III. Big oversized buttons, good AF system, USB 3 tethering, very sweet. Now the A7R Mark II is a bit of a mixed monster. It's got a nice tilted little screen, makes it great for shooting in awkward situations. But its small buttons also means it's prone, or rather it's very easy to press the wrong buttons when you're in a run and gun situation. It's only got USB 2 tethering, rather slow. But worst of all, it's its menu structure. It's really messy. Now let's take a look at dynamic range. So at an ISO of 100, we've got a little bit of a blown out highlights for the 3 relevant images. So let's take a look over here first. Let's zoom in. So they're not quite exactly the same, but we do see relevant blown out highlights for all 3 images. So let's try and pull the exposure slider down all the way and see how much detail do we actually get back. And what I would say is the Credo50 is definitely pulling in the most amount of details back from the overblown, or rather overexposed, the blown out highlight areas. The Sony is doing a pretty good job as well, and the Canon is doing an alright job only. Fair, but not the best in this case. Now let's take a look at dynamic range for shadow areas for all the 3 cameras, alright? So let's zoom in over here. Now let's try and recover some details in the shadow by pulling the exposure slider all the way up. And I can see that the Credo is doing an amazing job in terms of shadow area recovery as well. The A7rII is also doing a very good job. The Sony, or rather the Canon 5DSR on the other hand, is getting a little bit noisy in terms of the details and the shadows, but it's still doing a pretty decent job. But definitely the crown goes to the Credo50. So which is the best camera? Well, it really depends on the situation. If I want maximum image quality and I've got a camera on a tripod, I would probably go for the Leaf Credo50 with its maximum image quality. On the other hand, if I'm shooting mobile, this would be a good choice. Of course, I gotta be aware that going beyond ISO 1006 is probably not a very good idea. For low angle shooting or awkward situations, this would be a very good choice, the Sony A7R Mark II. The only thing is, if I'm shooting tethered, it's going to be a little bit slow with the USB 2 tethering. And of course, if I'm shooting handheld, I got to be very careful to not press the wrong buttons. So there you have it, the 3 cameras. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook and of course our Instagram feed as well. Thank you very much. Until next time.